Well then, welcome everyone to an Imposter King stream. I'm your host here, Sinbu, or actually says our real names on here, so Sina. I'm joined here with Dan, Sam, and Alyssa, who is Imposter Queen. Hello everyone, thanks for joining me today.
White Cena, Simbu, Cena.
All the names.
All the names. So today we are actually going to go back into a time capsule, 2022. We had a card competition where people were setting up cards, and and we have these four judges here, me included, to go through all these cards and actually, see what the community's put out. It's been amazing. Everyone's done a really good job. I'm pretty excited about all the different cards. Certainly a lot of variety, and some people even went into the lore, which is super exciting as well. But yeah, so it's just going to be us four, and we're going to talk through all of the contributions. There's about 25, 26 of them, and they're all really awesome. So I'm really excited to talk about them. And the funny thing is that all of us independently rated on different categories, and we have a really variety of different cards here. So today we're going to be talking about which card has the best lore, which card has the best game design, which cards are functionally make sense, and that one's kind of a confusing one. But basically, when you play that card, you really feel like you're doing it. You know, when you're an Inquisitor, you put it down, you're pointing your finger at someone. So which cards really represent that? And then finally, the overall favorite card for each of our judges. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get the show on the road. So I have Tabletop Simulator up, and as you can notice, we actually have all the cards printed out here, which is kind of cool, as well as the authors on the top right. So yeah, I think we're gonna start. We'll go ahead and start with you, Sam. Let's go through right to left. We'll talk about your gameplay choice, and then let's see what you have to say. So yeah, we're just gonna do it live. I mean, I can show you what it is, so you don't have to. So this one is the Bard. This one's from Artful Scruff. Has a value of 2. You may disgrace this card to the court to use that card's ability. They know how to gain favors. Sam, why did you give this one your favorite for gameplay? Sam, hold on for just 1 second. I'm sorry about that. Apparently, I have not had your audio come through because there we go. Now try speaking.
Awesome.
All right,
Perfect. I
my
didn't say
bad. I'm
anything
so sorry
important
about
anyway.
that. My cursor got stuck on the desktop audio, and apparently when I move my mouse to the left, it turns it off. So let's see if
Cool.
that helps.
So the
uh,
Bard is really awesome.
sorry about that.
Uh the I like toolbox effects in different games. So just being able to have a card that can essentially become almost any other card in the game. But in particular, the first things that come to mind are being able to take the Inquisitor, for example, take a Fool effect. I think I had noted that a really cool thing would be to King Flip in response and bait them out to play the Fool. And then you could just play this over it. So
Oh, interesting.
despite some cool plays that you can make with it, it's flexible. It has a lot of cool interactions with the other cards in the carpool. I'd also made a point like I would have loved if it was a 3. So that way in the end game, if they princess, I can play it on an elder and then I could use the princess ability to swap again. But I'm not sure where balancing would be with it. But ultimately, I just thought of all the cards, it had a really cool effect that I would have enjoyed playing with quite a bit. And there was like a lot of cool ideas that I had immediately once I read the cards. So overall, I just thought it was really cool with the different interactions in the game.
Man, that is super cool. I didn't think about that full interaction, which is awesome. Really cool. And your runner-up here was the Bastard from drewboy, and this one's going to come up quite a lot.
Yeah.
So go ahead. And this one reads, it's a 7, and it reads, you may condemn your successor to flip your king. If you do, this card becomes royalty, gains +2 while on the throne, and choose a card that is not disgraced or royalty from court and put the chosen card into your hand by right of conquest.
Yeah, this card was just super cool. Like I just as soon as I read it, I thought this would probably become my favorite card in the game if I played with it a lot. It just seems really like insulting and mean, and like the lore behind it is just like he doesn't care. He's just super edgy and like, I just got like super anime top 3 like Itachi vibes or something from him, where he just comes in, does what he wants to do. Becomes a 9, becomes royal. It can interact with warlords. It can be responded to with elders. The only thing I wasn't exactly sure how it worked with was if it got around assassin, because how it's worded where it still flips your king. I wasn't sure if you could assassinate respond to it. I was hoping you couldn't, but I assume you probably can, which would be not as cool. But still, despite that, I just really liked the vibe of the card and how aggressive it was. And I'm a very aggressive player in a lot of games that I play. And I could just see that card just really coming down and like taking command of the board state right away, which I really enjoyed.
And lore tidbit I have to throw in there obviously is that if he does take over the throne, the assassin's target does change. So if we want to be lore
All right.
specific, it's and for balance purposes because oh my goodness, that just neuters that card. But that's the
Yeah.
cool part about the cards and the way that they interact. I think this is a really cool one for that reason. So.
Yeah, big fan of the bastard. That one would be really fun to play with.
All right, we're gonna move up to Dan. Dan, your number 1 card is the Harlot.
So my number 1 from a gameplay perspective is the Harlot,
Correct.
and part of the reason why I love this one so much.
Don't let me put my words in your mouth about which one's your favorite, because we'll get there.
Yeah. But yeah, the Harlot. What I really love about this design is just the simplicity of it.
Let me
I
read it off
love-
real fast just for everyone who's just listening in. It's a 6. It's by drewboy as well. And it says, when another card is played on this card, disgrace them both. A lone daisy in the garden backed by a wall of roses.
Yeah, and just cards that have super simple concept that opens up a large well of possibility is something that really speaks to me, and that's exactly what this card is. Again, just that kind of chaining, disgracing often allows you to, it upends the power balance of the hand, or can be used to upend the power balance of the hand if you can back your opponent into a corner where you force them to play something that they really desperately want to use to force numbers on you or force an ability on you. To be able to back them into that corner is a very not only is it very satisfying should it happen, but also it again changes that power dynamic. It's something that opens up the possibilities of the hand. It's yet another thing you've got to take into account, the same way you take into account where is the Fool, and does the Fool live alongside an Oathbound, and where's the Mystic living, and can the King's Hand this, and all those other things you need to take into account. The Harlot, with its still very simple gameplay dynamic, just it's another comatronic explosion. It just multiplies times all those things in a way that's really interesting to me, and I think really opens up the strategy of each hand.
Gotcha. And your backup here is the Pretender from JohnnyGo.
That's the first of the 2 pretenders. There were 2 pretenders that were
That's
submitted
true.
by JohnnyGo.
So there are 2 pretenders, so pay attention those at home. This one's pretender number 1. So this is a 3, and it says, if this card is face up in court, no royalty may be played on the throne. This card is royalty unless there's other royalty in the court. Illegitimacy has found power.
Yeah, and from a gameplay perspective, again, so much of that power dynamic, that shape of a hand, is determined by the royalty. Where does the royalty live, and how's it going to be played? The princess's power is perhaps the strongest in the game. We've seen that again and again. And they are both dominant cards. A lot of the shape of the hand, the shape of the strength at the beginning is determined by the ability to deploy the royalty. And so if the pretender can emerge, yeah, that greatly constrains that. Much the same way that you have an elder, which is otherwise a weak card, which strictly exists just to bring a 9 down to the 3 in the status of the throne. This one upends the ability to get the 9 out in the first place. What I really love about this is it enhances 2 understated abilities within other cards. So the ability for soldiers to be able to disgrace other cards, and the warlord's ability to go from a 7 to a 9 to be boosted as a result of there being royalty present. I find that those are often slept on. They don't play as significantly as they could. And the fact that this enhances that, I find really satisfying.
Awesome. All right. Really cool cards, as I mentioned, all unique so far, and they're all awesome cards for being able to, I think, gameplay-wise, I think we all talked about the different ways they could be utilized, and even ways that I haven't even thought of. So we're going to move on to Imposter Queen over here. Imposter Queen, your number 1 is... I can't read it because it's actually above the share thing. Can anyone...
Here, I'll read it for you, Cena. Here
oh,
we
it's
go.
the page. Is that right?
Yes.
Oh, I love the page. Immune to the King's Hand. While you have, and this is by Artful Scruff as well, While you have a card in your antechamber, you may play this card as if it was in your antechamber. Sees more than would guess, accesses everything.
Yeah, so for this one, I personally have never been a huge fan of the antechamber.
My
I find
gosh.
it restrictive. And I like what this does to that. Like I like having something that can kind of throw like a new element in there. And so you think that either you're going to have to play something to your antechamber or from your antechamber, or the other person is trying to do it to you. And that's super frustrating. So I really like how this kind of like flips that on its head and just adds a new element of surprise to the game.
Awesome. Yeah, I agree, and I think that might be one of my cards at some point, so I'll talk about it then. But I agree. I think that this is definitely going to upend a couple of different ideas that people have when they're trying to play against you in the antechamber. Now, your secondary one here is the Nacht King. So this is from the Kid, two-time award-winning Kid, true king. Um, so this one reads, this is a king. So this is actually a separate king from the normal king. Instead of discarding, place a second successor under the king. You may only flip your king when the throne has a value of 6 or less. When you flip the Nacht King, place one of the successors in your hand, condemning the other for your turn.
So I think with this one, it's like just kind of a totally different change off of what you're doing, and adding a new king into the game is really interesting to me. But really limiting it about how you can only flip it when there's a low value. So I think that's an interesting concept to have two different things in play at once. And I kind of wonder about what putting a second successor down might do to your ability to play cards. Like, obviously, you've got fewer in your hand at that moment. And so I would personally be worried in playing this. But I feel like with the alternate king, a lot of it is about like more risk. So taking on like higher risk, higher potential reward. And so I think this really rings true with that, and I think it'd be a really interesting one to try to test out and see how the game goes with that one.
Yep. Shout out to the Kid for using the Nacht King, obviously tapping into the lore. This is the region that's to the east of the kingdom of Nerseti, and their customs of succession are strange but efficient. So really interesting. All right. I guess for me, the first one I had was the Bard. I think that's someone else's already. That's Sam. So same thing that Sam was saying. Disgracing a card, use that card's ability. Really cool. What I'm looking for when it comes to gameplay is looking to see if there's a way to create more opportunities without it being stale or boring or like, always the right option. I think the Bard is really cool because it's low, the value. So when you try to copy it, it has to be either an oath bound into it or they already have to like, disgrace a card. But it's just cool because your whole its power is variable depending on how big the court is. And if someone has a queen, they can counterplay it, or the soldier becomes more powerful because you start taking away its power, especially if they know it's in your hand. It's also really funny if you inquisit it out because then it's just kind of like a Spider-Man pointing fingers at each other meme where everyone's just inquisiting things. So. Anyways, super cool card. Awesome job, Artful Scruff. That was a fun one for me to look at. I also did the Nacht King. The Nacht King is a really interesting one for me. One, shout out again for the lore, but also it introduces this kind of new concept of two kings and a variable flip. So now you've lost the safety of flipping your king, which is like your get out of jail free card, as well as the thing that's super interesting, as Imposter Queen was pointing out, was you have less cards in your hand, so it's risky. The thing that's really beneficial about it, how many times do you guys start a game where someone's dropping a judge or an inquisitor as their first play? So now you have two cards under your successor and your discarded card. Now you have three cards that you could be bamboozling, including the face down card too. That's four bamboozle cards. So you can really play around. Look, Dan, I'm gonna pull out all the verbiage here. Bamboozling is a thing in this game, and I think, dropping an assassin and a princess in this little safety net, and then they flip early, and you're like, oh shoot, I don't need the assassin anymore. And picking up the princess is really cool. Or you're like, I can toss the princess because I know I'm gonna get him right now. I really like that. So
Well, one quick question on that. I was kind of assuming this didn't shrink your hand size because it was your
Mm.
face down burn card was the one that you were instead making the second successor. So I thought it was still the equivalent number of cards in your hand. You just instead of having to burn it, you could actually still access it. And the trade was that you couldn't flip your king on something over a 6.
yeah,
It's
uh,
more broken than you thought.
yeah, I know. It'd actually be balanced. I feel like even without that discard, like actually not burning your hand size. But I think my point is that, oh yeah, it's still like yeah, your hand size is the same. Um, anyways, so so yes, ignore that part, but everything else, it's
Well, you
very
picked that
powerful.
up from me, so I was the incorrect one to start with.
Yeah. Not gonna. I don't think that was the reason why I was thinking that. I think it was the fact that there is a very little trade-off, which I think I will always take this king, and I love it. Speaking of which, all of these cards are obviously, they're ideas, brainstorms, whatever. At the end of this, I'll showcase that we actually incorporated it into Tabletop Simulator, so you can play with these cards starting today, even using the Imposter Kings Tabletop Simulator mod. People who are creating these cards, if you have modifications that you want to make after you play test it a couple times, or notice that using this king is broken. No, I'm kidding. You can obviously reach out to me. I've templatized these so we can quickly modify them, and I think these are cool enough that I would love for us to have like a community poll that we can draw from to always make the game a lot more variable and fun. So, all right, that was gameplay. Any closing thoughts?
So, Cena, are you saying that the knocked king is knocked bad?
It's let's just say it fits the lore. I'm just kidding. I'm not gonna do any lore drops here, but for like the one fan who's like, when's the book coming out? All right. So next up we are going to the lore. Hey, look at that. We'll go in reverse order. I'm gonna talk again. My favorite was the Harlot. So just to give context on this one, there was a lot more to this than I have placed it here because there's an additional lore section. You can find that in the Tabletop Simulator, in the Discord. I'm going to go ahead and just try to see if I can paste it here. Watch this. This is cool. This is smart. This is on the fly thinking. Lore. So the Harlot reads, it's a 6. When another card is played on this card, disgrace them both. A lone daisy in a garden backed by a wall of roses. I have to say that again because I love that small, concise quote. And then it goes, and it actually fits into the bigger lore, too. When the queen came to my chambers in the middle of the night, I knew not what to think. I knew not what to think. Slowly, the sleep cleared from my mind and eyes. She spoke with a calmness before that of a storm. What she asked of me, simple. What she implied of me, terrifying. A wink here, a blown kiss there, a letter with a delicate calligraphy, sealed with my favorite shade, just enough to keep them enchanted. I feared for myself if should I disobey her. Sorry, I'm bad at reading. Soon their day before the king would come, and I would tarnish their name before God's men and my queen. So, super cool. Really, the implication is kind of it's a spooky one, and I really love how it plays in the court too. You play her, someone else plays on top of her, being like, "Hey, she's just a harlot. What does she know?" And boy, does she know stuff about them. She dishes it back and gets them disgraced. Anyways, love that. So that's number one. Number two for me is the commander. And I think we have some, this is another lore piece here. It is said that the commander of the, first let me read the lore of the thing itself. This one's from the Oceanic 7th. Last one was from drewboy. This is a 6. For each soldier face up in court, this card gains +1 value to your hand and on the throne. Reaction: if another player were to disgrace or condemn cards, you may reveal and condemn this card instead. Victory can only be attained through sacrifice. It is said that when the commanders of the king of soldiers were to partake in the quench, mere hours before the law was abolished, while sparring him from undoubtedly combating and killing his childhood friend, the commander vowed to protect his king and rulings. From that day forward, his stern teachings implement the forfeiture of self and unity among the regiment. He still longs to share a drink with his childhood friend, who vanished during that chaotic aftermath of the quench's deficits. So lore drops here. If you go to the lore channel, the hashtag, I meant not quotes, the hashtag. If you go to hashtag lore, you'll see what the quench is and why that's in referenced. The soldier also has that reference too, which is a neat callback. And yeah, just a lot of thinking and, background to this one. So I just really loved how this kind of came out. The card fits the function too, which, is in a different section, but it's a bonus for this one too, which is cares about soldiers, and the quench is brought up in the soldier card as well. This is like just all around really cool about how that was brought up. So that's it for me. Next up, we got Imposter Queen. You have the Bastard. So this one we've already went through. This is the one that will essentially make you flip your king, take the success, condemn your successor, and pull a card from the court. Just a quick note, gameplay-wise, super cool that it balances your hand out, even though you're condemning your successor. Smart game design there by drewboy. So, Imposter Queen, I'll let you take over this one for why you enjoyed the. Oh, also.
This had an extra lore too.
Oh, it sure did. I'll read it. I've never had a desire for my father's seat, his burdens, nor his boons. I was not my father's son. I lived a life of relative privilege, considering her scoffs and glares were the worst I needed to contend with. My half-sister was always far more kindly of my station than her mother, at least. Less than a year before my 20th winter, these would-be usurpers showed their own faces to Nersetti, but the face of my father. Worse yet, she sides with herself, one of these mirrored men. Do you not know the face of your liege, your husband, your love? I now know what must be done. Nersetti will fall to ruin should these masked men win the throne. I fear not even my father himself could stand against the coming tide. While just he lacks a certain cunning necessary to rout out deception. A life of honor and good faith makes one not concerned with duplicity. His man and loyalists are far suited to the task, not afraid to dirty their hands, or in some cases dirty the hands of others. I have just such a one in mind. All right. So, go ahead.
I mean, I honestly kind of feel like that reading of the lore speaks for itself. I think the lore was super well thought out, really well written, and just fits well with the lore of the game itself. It sounds like something that would have been written as part of the original lore. It's like similar style of writing, similar concepts, and just really well done. And then I think like I could see kind of the bastard fitting into the world that's already been created. I feel like this just fits well into the game.
Cool. And your secondary here is the Astrologer. So this is an Artful Scruff original. 6, you may choose an opponent and say a card equal to a card in your hand. If the opponent has a card of that value in their hand, place both in your antechambers. Her predictions are vague yet compelling.
I mean, I just liked the lore a lot on that one. It short but sweet, and it speaks to what it is by naming a number. You're not being specific. So it's the can't remember the specific words to use now, and my eyesight is not good
Her
enough.
predictions are vague yet
Was that what it was?
compelling.
Yeah. So I think by saying the number, you're being vague, you're not being specific, but obviously an effective card. And I could see that this is a really powerful card in play. So liked
Awesome.
it.
Cool. Dan, you're up. Your number 1 is
Pretender, yeah.
the
Hey,
Pretender.
it pops back up again.
This is the
So, first of all,
Pretender that has the no royalty can be played to throne.
That's right. And one of the things that I always love thinking about the lore of it, right? The whole point of the game is this clashing and the politicking of who's going to reign the kingdom of Nersetti. And so there's something really pungent and flavorful about a false king, a false royalty stepping in to that role and doing a very poor job of it, at least is implied by the low number and what's doing. And that in turn, the way it interacts with the other cards in that lore, the idea that, right, it opens the door for the warlord. It opens the soldiers are the ones who must dispatch this pretender for the real royalty to emerge and deliver the kingdom from, this imposter. Not one of the imposter kings, but an imposter king, as it were, to deliver the kingdom from them. And again, if you view each hand as a story, which you can, and I recommend that, for those of you who play, just look before you flip the table at the end of it, just look at each of the cards and weave a story around it, because each time a card is played to the court, that's a play for them to be the next ruler of the kingdom of Nersetti. There's something really pungent about this card being one of the cards in court and what it meant for the other cards played subsequently that I really enjoyed and find it really enhances the lore, the flavor. It's good garlic in the dish, so to speak.
All right. And your follow-up here is the Body Double.
That body double. So if
this
you go
is
ahead
from
and
Dr. Ween. This is a 1. It's a reaction that says, when a card between 2 and 8 is either condemned or disgraced by your opponent, you may exchange this card with the body double prior to the effect taking place. Body double is now the new target. Imposters in training don't live very long. And
Well,
right
for
before,
those
Dan, you get started, this is the first body double, so I'm gonna go ahead and Dr. Ween actually commissioned artwork for this one. And so this one actually has something he was using for something else, but he's like, this is what I was envisioning for the body double. So really cool artwork here.
beware sandy people with wavy sandy hair. That's right. You gotta keep an eye on those folks.
Imposter Kings is very open and accessible and welcomes everyone. So please treat everyone with respect. And no, I'm kidding. Go ahead, Dan. I mean, I'm not kidding. Please do, but also go ahead.
Ah, so for those of you who aren't aware, there's actually a big crossover community between the Imposter Kings and the 1971 James Bond film Diamonds Are Forever. You might recall at one point Blofeld, whom Bond is pursuing on that, he thinks he's got Blofeld in the corner and he shoots him, bang. And it's like, he just got Blofeld. Blofeld killed his wife in the last movie. Spoiler alert for a movie that's 54 years old. I finally got him, but it turns out it was a
I'll bleep
fake
it out.
Blofeld. It was a body double. And again, it's all part of the machinations. I kind of love the playfulness of this. It's a little bit enjoyably comic. I know a lot of the lore tends to be more on the po-face side. I kind of like the lore that's more playful and kind of the I wouldn't say wacky, but a bit more outre in terms of how the machinations are going in terms of who's going to be king. And I just love the idea that, bang, you think you got him? Well, it's just that sandy-haired gentleman with his N95 mask on that you got, and you didn't actually clip the character you thought you did. And I think it's fun, and I enjoyed it.
You're catching some strays in the chat over here. I think JohnnyGo is saying a movie that is 50 years old and bad, and that Lazenby was not a great Bond. So,
listen, I want to point out that On Her Majesty's Secret Service does not have a very good James Bond in it, but is a very good James Bond movie because there's Emma Peel in it. It's a terrific movie. It just kind of has a lump as the main character. But you only see, Lazenby's only Bond for about 20% of it, stuntman for the rest. The stuntman's the guy you really care about.
all right. And with that, Sam, lore. So you also have the Bastard, which we've talked about a couple times now. And read
kind
the
of like what I
extended
said
lore.
before. Yeah, I mean, it's all the reasons you guys talked about already. I just thought that the card itself, the way it plays, and Dan, I never thought about the game playing out like a story like you described, and I feel like the Bastard does that expertly, where when you play that and he just kills, or his dad dies, or the king is then killed, and he is now forcing his way to successing onto the throne. I just thought that felt so flavorful and so accurate to how the card plays, and I really resonated with the extended lore as well. I really like edgy anti-hero characters, and I really vibed with that.
It's the second time you brought that
I know.
trope up.
I didn't want to spoil anything until the real lore came out, so now that it is, people can understand what I meant by that.
Awesome. Yeah, we'll design a card called Anti-Hero, and we'll put everything in there.
I'm still looking for a favorite card, so yeah, just let me know.
All right, and then for your secondary, you have the Commander as well.
Yeah, I'll talk more about this guy later. I have a deep fascination with the Commander, but we'll get to that later. For the point in time of the lore, again, I thought flavor-wise, it was perfect with its effect and with its with his backstory. And yeah, nothing much else to say than what's already been said. I'll get to the Commander later. I don't want to talk about it too much now.
Awesome, saving it up. I love that.
Yeah.
All right. Well, with that being said, you're not off the hook. We're now talking about function. So these are the cards that are, when you play them, you really feel it. Like, when the Zealot comes in, he cares about overthrowing anyone who's on the throne other than the king or queen. Fun fact about how that lore came about, literally was just reading history. And yeah, anyways, the Zealot is crazy. So here we go. Number 1 for you is the Corruptor. So this is the kid. Gonna give number 2 for the value, and choose another player. They must reveal a card from their hand. Then you must reveal your discard. If it is higher or equal value, then you must discard the revealed card. And the flavor text: Nathari mystics devour mind as eagerly as the body. Gonna quickly shout out. He's not only hitting the Nacht, but now he's going with Nathari, which is another tribe in the world of Nerceti. So the kid lore, love it. Please, Sam.
Massive, massive shout out to the kid. Did not even know that he created this card. He is the reason why I know of this game today. Love that guy. So I'm super glad that I could read this card and it resonated so much to me that I could just feel his energy through it. Um, but yeah, gameplay wise, when I read this card, I thought, man, what a sick mechanic and able to play with the discarded side of the game. I think that Imposter Kings is such a cool playstyle oriented game. The way you play it is really unique to who you are as a person. And being able to play with the discard normally in the game is much more about hand efficiency and not as much about gameplay decision in the long run. So like I thought having the corruptor would have been so cool to just make such a stupid play, right? Like throw your sentry in the discard to really play into the corruptor for later on. And then it also gathers information scouting wise from your opponent. So they can choose, you can force them into a position where if they only have 1 or 2 cards left in their hand, and you can drop this. You can kind of kill cards that if you use it poorly, you also get punished if they show you a royal or something like that. I just thought it really like adds a corrupting feeling to the game, and it corrupts you as a player as well because you have to kind of make a poor gamble at the beginning depending on how aggressive you want to be. So yeah, really cool card, very unique, and I just love finding new ways to play with the different axes of Imposter Kings and playing with the discard pile in particular. And I also love multiplayer, and the facets of how to use this in a multiplayer setting would be really cool as well. So yeah, really cool card.
And it's essentially weaponizing your discard, which I think is hilarious. You drop a queen or a princess in there, and you're basically forcing them to discard a card. Might want to put that in my back pocket for the Warring Nathari crew. Very cool. The other thing I was going to say is that upcoming, the discard is going to be called the dungeon, and there's something really funny about throwing someone into the dungeon, as Dan's making the story. You're throwing something in the dungeon, and then you're like, look what I got. Like, like you're like showcasing them to corrupt another card is just really fun. All right, next up we have the Bastard again.
Yeah, I mean, like I keep saying, when I just read this card and when I play it, I feel like I'm the bastard, So I think function and gameplay wise, it just really embodies what the card is. I don't know how many other ways I can say it, but yeah, card is just really cool.
Well,
So
if you put it in your overall, you're gonna have to say it one more time. So start thinking about it if you did.
Spoiler alert, I didn't.
Oh, okay. Whew. Boy, a lot of spoilers in this chat about Bond and our Discord communities, and yeah. Dan, you're up next. Your first card, the Pretender.
The Pretender again. Yeah, I mean, I think I hit a lot of it during the lore discussion. Yep, there's the Pretender. I hit a lot of it during the lore discussion, but again, the idea around this imposter king, as it were, kind of upending the situation and the real royalty not being able to emerge unless they're the spats, and the soldiers are basically the ones that are going to have to get rid of them, or you're going to have to use the magic of one of the characters, or you got to just get through it. It's interesting. It's an interesting dynamic that's revealed by having this Pretender ascend to the throne. That's part of that story around who's really going to be the leader of the kingdom of Nerceti, which is, as I mentioned last time. And then there is a new card on my table, which is the other one.
This is cool because you're just saying the Mystic, for example, can stop its power by sacrificing herself and saying the number 3. The Sentry can sacrifice it by pulling it into your hand, like.
Well, that's right, because all the other characters, they all have their dynamics. So again, if you think of each hand as a story, so right, the Mystic, basically outs themselves as a magic user, in order to, right, as you mentioned, make that self-sacrificing moment to reveal the Pretender on the throne. And now the real queen or the real princess can emerge to dispel this. Or yeah, the soldiers show up and throw this guy on his face. Or there's a lot of different things that you can do. Or yeah, the Sentry can abscond with them, basically disappear with them, sacrifice themselves, and the Pretender disappears, and now the royalty can emerge. I just love all those dynamics.
Yeah. Awesome. And for those of you lore fans out there, Dan just kind of implied, but it's true. The Mystic, when she disgraces herself to use her power, that's because in the world of Nerceti, magic users aren't treated well, or they hide their powers essentially. So the Mystic has a power Her voice silences the court, as the flavor says. And so when every time you use the mystic, she's sacrificing herself and disgracing herself in order to benefit the throne. So keep that in mind. Every time you flip her, you're killing her. No, I'm kidding. You're outing her as a magic user.
Well,
Um,
and the other thing, I again love the warlord interaction because it's a little bit of it's almost like Richard III in a lot of ways, where you have a weak king that has emerged and
oh
all
yes,
the yes,
Richard the Third.
well, anyway, for those of you, interested in that, actually, no, I'm getting that mixed up. Not Richard III. It's no, I think it is Richard III. Anyway, yeah, you've got a weak monarch, in this case, a fake one, and that allows everyone else who's trying to make a play at the throne to do so. Which would be, for example, the warlord. It becomes a very potent card while you have this fake imposter king hanging around. Uh,
So your other
and
one here is from Clark 1421. This is the Prince royalty. If this card is on the throne at the game's end, its owner gains an extra point.
Yeah, I love this card because of the meta of it, obviously. The idea is, right, the prince is the one who's supposed to be, the ruler after this all. So it's
What
the
about the princess,
storyline
Dan?
being, well, I know, right? It seems I mean, we can get into the chauvinism of, and of the Kingdom of Nursetti, and it does seem to be a somewhat chauvinistic world, perhaps.
It is not, in fact. I just wanted to make that clear. They don't actually. It's weird. They have like a gender thing that they don't actually consider gender quite a lot. So
Well, I look forward to reading that expanded universe
it's
novel.
in the addendum 5. I'll send it over.
That's exciting. I don't know. Again, you're right. Really, ultimately, it should be the queen, or the princess. Um, but this concept around, this is right. It's sort of a multiverse play, the Kingdom of Nursetti, right? The idea is that there's all sorts of different timelines. It's like each hand is a timeline, and the meta reinforces the idea that this is the right timeline that this game has gone down, and
Yeah.
thus the player is rewarded for having found the correct timeline amongst all of the different roads forward with the right conclusion, and thus they get the extra point. Granted, right, I think the princess is. It's interesting is since the prince has no active ability that helps you win the hand besides the number, there actually seem to be less capable monarch than the other royalty. And I suppose there's a statement in there on that,
I
but
think it's implied that the prince is probably a good monarch, which is why you get the extra point, but it's hard to get him there.
yeah, well, there you
That's what I
go.
like to think about it.
There's a certain richness. You can write some interesting headcanon around that, and that's the whole point of the category, right?
But
So I
one
really
thing you
enjoy
did
that.
say, actually, that I'm not sure if all of our listeners know, you are correct. The hands that you're playing is a timeline that you're playing, essentially, or like a possibility. The king, when he falls into the pool, he gets to see all the different timelines. He's trying to figure out what's the best way to win. And so this fits into that headcanon too, which is when you do win, you have found it doesn't matter who wins, it's that person figures out the right timeline. And that's what the king does, and then you are part of the story. All of you, everyone, even you
Does that
can
does
can save this kingdom of Nursetti.
does that mean when you flip the table? Is that like an Into the Breach where you hit the abandoned timeline
Yeah,
button?
the
And
skip timeline button. That's exactly right. I'm sure Imposter Queen has a lot to say about shifting timelines, parallel universing, and Princess and Richard III. So let's
Yeah,
go ahead and
nothing.
let's go
Nothing.
ahead and see what you've put here. You put the harlot down for function.
Yeah, I really loved this card a lot of what other people have said, but to me, I think the gameplay just fits really well with the way it's described and who she is. And so I think you really kind of like you get the character and the nature of the harlot by doing the effect of the card. And so the whole concept is that like she kind of takes somebody down with her. So like the idea of a harlot being somebody who's, like looked down upon and is kind of viewed negatively, and she's sacrificing herself for the game and saying, I'm coming out and I'm being played here, but you're going to be disgraced alongside of me. I love that.
What's funny is, because Sam brought up multiplayer, what's also really cool is there's some cool combos here where if one player can set someone's antechamber up and then you play the harlot and then they have to play that thing on top of the harlot, there's some wombo combo functionality form fit thing that I really enjoy, which is someone says, "Hey, I think the queen needs to talk," and it's like before she talks, let's get the harlot up there, and then the harlot gets up there and it's just like, "I got some dirt," and then the queen comes out and she's like, "Wait, hold on, what's going on?" And then they all get disgraced.
I've been set up.
Yeah, I've been set up exactly. Your secondary here is the smuggler. So this is one. I believe this is from Artful Scruff. I can't read because again the thing's blocking. Is that Artful Scruff? Someone read?
Yep.
Cool. So this is a 2 that says, this is a new card. You may look at one card removed from the game and you may add it to your hand, then disgrace this card. They traffic people as well as goods.
Yeah, I thought this gameplay fit really well with what a smuggler would be as well. I mean, just really you're taking something that's off here on the side, smuggling it back into the game. It fit well to me.
Cool. Yeah, I think that's, it's simple but also really effective in terms of what it does and how it fits like kind of as in the story. So really cool there. And then we'll go to function here for me. My number one thing is the Pretender. For a lot of reasons what Dan said. Really love that it interacts really interestingly with every single card. We've talked to death about it, so we don't need to go over it again. Just in the fact that it is really clear that you've shifted the game when you play this. Second one for me is the body double. Let me move the thing over here. So the body double is interesting for me because it's really clear that you are stopping something from happening terrible. It's like someone's about to be disgraced. Get in there. Someone's about to be condemned. Get in there. Like it's really clear what you're doing with the body double. The other part of it that I really enjoy is that if you called out the fact that someone has a body double, they get hosed. So I inquisite. I say, "Hey, I think you got a body double going for you." They have to play it. It's just a 1, and then you can play a fool on top of that. You can play whatever you want. So there's something cool about that form functionality there, which is if you're thinking people are like overprotective, you can peel the onion back and say, "Hey, I think you got a body double," and how embarrassing that is that for you in the court? Well, it's so embarrassing we can bring the fool up. Like it's I don't know. I think that's really cool. So, all right, now we are going to head over to our overall. So this is just asking the judges what was their favorite card overall. And to be honest, it was really difficult. A lot of these are really unique and really cool. We'll start with mine. I like the Bastard. I think it hits all the different components that we talked about. There is a cool gameplay mechanic. There is lore and added lore, and its form fits its function. So I felt like this really hit everything. And it does the number one rule for me in this game, which is each card should really open up lines rather than make the game stale. And so I think the Bastard does a really good job of that because you're picking something up from the court and you're making the decision to condemn your successor and flip your king. It is a May ability, so you can't force someone to do it if they have it in their hand, which I thought was kind of that would have been funny. It's like, "Hey, I think you got a Bastard," and all of a sudden they got to get rid of all their stuff. But I do think that this really does fit that. My secondary is the Page. There's something really cool about... So what this does is it delays your antechamber. Because what it does is you play this card as if it was in your antechamber, but your antechamber card is still there. So what this really does is that it makes it so... there's obviously judge shenanigans, right? You play something with the judge, you put it in your antechamber, then you delay it a turn, and then you have basically 3 turns where you're just like playing back to back on whatever you want. So there's combo ability, but I think the thing that makes it really interesting is, again, in terms of opening up the lines, now you are countering the Inquisitor in a unique way. It's not like, hey, like the Impersonator, which was one of the Kickstarter backed cards, that one just lets you swap it out. But this one is more interesting to me because sometimes there's benefit in delaying. You get to see more of their hand. You get to make better decisions. More information's revealed. I like the Page. I think it's really cool. Anyone have any thoughts on those before we move on to Imposter Queens?
Bastard is such a cool card.
Oh, yeah.
Well, I'm curious to see what you put down. We'll get there, though. Imposter Queen, you got the Pretender, but this is the second Pretender. So this is a joint venture between JohnnyGo and Samm, who are brothers. I'm not sure. I think one of them created and the other one was modifying or riffing with them on it. I'm sure I'll get chats in the chats right now, but the chats in the chats. This is a royalty, a 3. This says create a new court and move this card to its throne. Players may play it on either court. The next time a card on a throne is disgraced, disgrace all cards in that court and end it. So illegitimacy has found power. Imposter Queen.
So yes to the flavor text. I feel like that fit really well with the card. And I loved the concept of like really totally net new gameplay here. That you're creating this second game within a game, you have a way of ending it. It just felt really interesting to me and a huge expansion to the game already and what you're already doing with the game with just one card. So it was pretty cool to me that you could kind of just create this totally new game by inserting this card into the deck.
Now, do you suppose it's when you create that new throne, is that a parallel timeline there, or is that just a divided court?
Ooh, I don't know. I
So,
never thought I liked what Dan brought up about the like kind of creating a story with every card you're putting down. And I really like how this would fit into that concept of like the two stories going side by side. It almost makes me think of like those novels that you're kind of going back and forth in these two different timelines and you're learning about both at the same time.
and then you can end it, just like
Yep.
a Docker container. You can just, put the kibosh on it.
Sure.
I was reading in the chat that Sam did most of the work on this one, says Johnny Go. So shout out to Sam. And yeah, very cool. Your secondary here is the body double. Let me move the icon. Uh-oh. Oh, no. Oh, geez. All right.
Yeah.
Body double.
I need that as part of it.
It's important.
Yeah. I mean, everything that everybody said about the body double, definitely true. I love the gameplay on this, but the picture was really what did it for me. I think one of the
Nice.
cool things about Imposter Kings is I feel like the art marries so well with the cards and who they are, and you kind of visualize the individual like character as you're playing it and it brings it to life so much more. And so I loved that this one had something that I could already start visualizing. Who is the body double? What is he doing? What does he look like? And so that really brought it to life for me.
And I can see this is also the imposter royal pet is also enjoying this one. I can hear the
Can you
purring.
hear her? Oh my
Yeah,
gosh.
she's going. So
Here she
body
is.
double, Dr. Ween,
Yeah.
you got a cat fan there. So all right, all right, family show, like quite literally. All right, so now we're gonna move on to Dan's number one.
Well,
What a surprise! It is the Pretender.
well,
This
yeah,
is the
my
first
top
Pretender.
two. Yeah, my top two cards are two cards we've talked about a lot because my second card is the Harlot. And it was hard to pick between these two about which was number one and number two. They both are, I think, would have been excellent top choices. Um, again, I've already talked a lot about the Pretender. I love the reason why I ended up putting it on top is just all the interactions with the other cards.
Yep.
The way it brings so much flavor out and what happens in the shape of the hand. And I do love the lore around it and how again it helps with the storytelling element. But one thing that's really opened my eyes a bit, and it's one of the things the Imposter Queen said earlier, is the Harlot's got great lore too, and there's actually an element of pathos around that card that is, I think, really strong. And again, from a gameplay perspective, I already talked about how much I love how its simplicity leads to a lot of dynamic possibilities in terms of the tactics and strategy around the hand. They're both great cards. These are cards that I feel you could drop into any given kind of two-player deck of Imposter Kings, and it greatly changes the gameplay. It opens up strategies. It does all sorts of new things. If you want to approach it as a storytelling game, they're both open up a lot of really great storytelling options. They really enhance that flavor as well as just making the game really fun. And that's what a great card does for both of them. So I'm big fans of both.
Awesome. And there's one meta point that I haven't mentioned. This is authored by JohnnyGo, and JohnnyGo, if you all don't know, he's pretty much played in every tournament, and he's known as a king killer. So he quite literally always beats the giants of the tournament, whether it be the kid or Goose. He's always up there. He doesn't make it to the finals, but he does knock every single top player down a peg when he plays, and I think it's probably because he is actually the Pretender. He is no, I'm kidding. He likes to play a unique style that really I think the Pretender exemplifies as well. So kind of a cool author card relationship there. All right. he says I lost the kid. Yeah, everyone loses to the kid. That happens. But you've definitely in tournaments have been killing some people. So, all right, now it's time for Sam, Notorious BLT. Your number one is the Commander, and I think you wanted to talk about this one when you got to the
Yeah,
overall here.
I got some words to say about this card. Well, for my overall cards, I selected ones that as soon as I read them, my head just started like spinning of all the possibilities. Like, what can I do with this card? So this one did that. But the other thing is, I have this long stand theory with myself that the soldier is the best card in the game. I haven't been able to convince myself of that yet, but I really want to believe it because it can do everything in the game. It can scout, it can control the board state, it can become a beater, so it can be a bigger number, and that seems good. But in my local play group, everyone thinks the soldier's the worst card, and they throw it away immediately. So when I read this card, I thought, awesome, soldier support. I love that. So it's something to continue my conquest for soldier being best card in the game. But the reaction ability was really what got me because I had so many questions about it. I wasn't exactly sure how it interacted in certain situations, but I was starting to think like, so if someone plays a mystic, can I use this to defend myself from the mystic ability? Because if they disgrace themselves, I could say, no, I'm going to disgrace this instead. You no longer can
Mm.
flip and use its power. Same with the sentry. Same with Oathbound, where if they use the Oathbound effect to disgrace like a royalty when I have a response, I could say, no, you can't do that. And then it started getting more complicated where I thought, okay, if I assassinate them and the king's hand me and I use this to negate it, does it also negate the negation of the assassin or does it just condemn the card and I keep the assassin in my hand? So I just started having so many cool thoughts of how this could interact with saving cards, with saving cards for your own self, for like returning them with the fool, or just like even if they drop a queen and there's a card that you still want to preserve from getting disgraced, you can use this card. So a card that seemingly could be a negative to you if you use its reaction ability, the utility of how it can protect you or be flexible with your play patterns, along with its power buff from the soldiers, just really like, yeah, as you can hear, I've been thinking about it a lot for the last 12 hours of my life. So
We'll have to ask the Oceanic Seventh about all of those rule clarifications. Those are, yeah, I mean, as you mentioned, there's so much versatility with what you're saying. Yeah, and don't worry about those haters about the soldier. It's it's got its purpose. So,
I believe.
your second here is the Bard. So this is the one where you can disgrace a card in the court to use its ability.
Yep, same thing like I had kind of said before about just cards that really made me think about how they interact in the game and especially with in multiplayer like I said 4 players like my favorite game mode so the bar just has so many flexible lines and so many cool things you can do and when I think about certain problems that I come across in 1v1 where it's like well if I flip my king here I give them a free fool and then that's not a good play. If I had the bard it's like okay cool do it to me and then I'll take your fool's power by responding with the bard. So, and I'm also a musician, so anything relating to music or like the bard of the court, I just naturally was like, oh, that's pretty sick. I love that. Uh, I like the lower cost cards where they have a lot of flexibility and power, but the trade off is it's basically like a -1 in your hand until you get to use it. So similar to the fool, I just thought the bard was like another fool that had a lot of versatility and really got me excited about how it could play in the game.
Just like a musician, super underappreciated, but has lots of power once you unlock it.
Exactly. Him
Yeah.
and the commander. Underdogs.
I can envision you playing with the bard, maybe having a nice little bass right next to you that you can strum a little tune every time you have him out. As long as he's not disgraced in court, you have to keep playing. Well,
Yeah, we'll add that as a side note.
that's that actually, on the online client, that might be an interesting thing. If you have a musician type character, it just changes the music until it gets disgraced. But I digress. So there you have it. Lots of different unique cards, lots of different things. Really cool, creative. So appreciate everyone who put in stuff. The Oceanic Seventh is in the chat and says, I'll start typing up all the clarifications. Shout out to you, Sam. So yeah,
Awesome.
I think that's pretty much it for tonight. Thanks everyone who joined, and this will also be up on YouTube. Hi, YouTube. I was going to mention, as I mentioned before, if you go to the Imposter Kings here and you load up the Imposter Kings, you look over here, the card creation community, community card creation 2022 is here. You can create a custom deck. You can also just grab these cards, copy, paste them, make your own decks. as well as the tournament decks and the tournament rules are all in. So please go check it out. If you don't know what I'm talking about when I say tournament rules, feel free to ping me or look at the Discord. There's a tournament rules section, but also the card creation section where you can find all of these creations. And please post more. It's not sure whether it depends on how well received this is and how much people enjoy this, but we certainly aren't opposed to doing another creation contest, and maybe there'll be some fun prizes too. It's hard to be objectively giving out prizes when every card is so unique and cool that we couldn't even come to a consensus on what's the best overall card. But I digress. So yeah, again, thank you everyone. If you're a card creator and you want to modify your cards, let us know. For those of you, you may have heard me just say that there is an online client. There's Tabletop Simulator, obviously, but if you want to play 2-player standard online, you can go to play.imposterkings.com right now, today, and play Imposter Kings with anyone for free. And it's fun. Go to the hashtag looking for group section of the Discord to find opponents, and you don't even have to sit down and play the whole entire game in one go. It saves your state, which I think is my favorite part because it's fun to have 9 games going at the same time. Finally, next week there's going to be an announcement for an online tournament. So this is going to be 2-player standard, just an online summer bash, end of spring cleanup. I don't know. I'll come up with something creative. Stay royal. So get your practice in now, and we will definitely have some more details on that too, as well as other announcements. But other than that, I think that's it. Does anyone else have anything else they want to add about tonight's picks and everything?
Well, I just want to say, I mean, the amount of creativity and sensitivity that was balanced within the game is really incredible. This was hard to do. It was hard to come up with picks, not because of a lack of choices, but because there were so many good cards to sort through. It was really difficult to be able to put any at the top for category because there were so many worthwhile candidates. It was really challenging.
Awesome. Well, I do want to thank you all for joining, and hopefully we'll see all your faces again when we start doing some more casting for the Summer Splash. Spring, I don't know. I'm bad at this. Dan, do you have anything?
It's gonna, whatever it is, it's gonna be 100% unmissable. The summer tournament coming up. If you like Imposter Kings, and believe me, if you're watching this, I'm gonna guess you probably do. You are going to want to watch this summer tournament. You're going to want to participate in the summer tournament, but even if you can't, you're going to want to watch it. You're going to want to tell at least 50 friends and make sure that they each tell 50 people, which, if my math is correct, means that everyone on the planet Earth will know about this tournament in 3 weeks. Just make sure they tell 50. That's the important part.
Gotcha.
And yeah, it's going to be great. It's going to be a lot of fun. If you want to play Imposter Kings right now, just play.imposterkings. I want to play Imposter Kings. Play.imposterkings.com. Absorb that art, enjoy it, or right on TTS right here. You can play with these custom cards right now. Give them a swing, try them out. I got to tell you, it's a lot of fun. If you're not playing Imposter Kings right after this tonight, that's fine. I'm not going to judge your life choices, but
This is why I should just sent it over to you at the beginning. So anyways, Royal Rumble coming soon. So I'm going to come up with 5 more different names. Thank you, everyone who's joined, and we will see you later. Stay royal.
Thanks.
See ya.